Hey everybody, welcome back to Record-ology. It is nighttime and I've done this intro in the nighttime because I want you to avoid being left in the dark when it comes to preamps. And I'm wearing green because there's a tie-in that you'll learn about later that has to do with this particular product. Anyway, if you don't know what a preamp is, if you're wondering why we need them, or you just want to see a new one and how it works, you've come to the right place, because today we are checking out a preamp that does a couple things that others don't, and we're going to go over the basics of preamps again. Anyway, you are not going to want to miss this. Oh yes, it's time again for a preamp. I love me a preamp. Okay, let's go ahead and take the shrink wrap off. It's as easy as that, folks. Now, before we get into this preamp, I want to go over again, what the heck is a preamp? Why do you need one? What does it do? Okay, so here's the deal with preamps. First, let's create a scale on the right, low and high, this being low and this being high. And on this scale, and this is a gross generalization, of course, there are two voltage levels. One we are going to call line level, or line, and the other one we are going to call phono level. For right now, I'm just going to put a pH. So when you plug something into powered speakers, into a receiver, the voltage on that line has to be line level. That's why it's called line level. And the problem is not all record players can output line level by themselves. It's dictated by the type of cartridge that they have. So on this side, I'm going to put two circles. And these two circles represent two types of cartridges. Both are on that same poorly represented, but hopefully understandable scale of voltage. In this case, voltage output. This first one is going to be a cartridge that outputs a line level voltage by itself, and that is a ceramic, a cheap ceramic. So if you have like a Crosley or any kind of record player with a ceramic cartridge, it does not need any sort of preamplification before it can go into a line level device, because it is line level. It outputs a line level device. Well, higher end cartridges down here, phono cartridges that are moving magnetic and even moving coil, or even a little bit lower, but for this, moving magnet cartridges, so like the Audio-Technica 3600L and most cartridges that you're going to end up working with on a higher end turntable, they output what's called a phono level voltage. So as you can see, if we were to plug this straight in, it would not be high enough voltage or loud enough for a line level device. So a preamp sits right in here. I'm gonna say pre, and it amplifies that moving magnet cartridge at phono level up to line level. So basically it takes the lower voltage cartridge and pre-amplifies it to line level. And the reason why it says pre is because your amplification, your amp, handles the speaker amplification. This is just to pre-amplify the level up to that line level voltage so you can plug it into an input on a receiver, powered speakers, etc., etc. But that's not all. Another thing that we need to talk about is something, and we haven't done this on this show yet, and we really need to, but it's something called the RIAA curve. Now, the recording industry of America has a predefined standard for vinyl records, and essentially what it has to do with is the modulation, the sound waves on a record are pretty wide and varied. I shouldn't say on a record. Sound waves, as they occur in the real world, are pretty dynamic and big. They don't fit on a record. So another thing that a preamp does is it decodes the RIAA, or adds the RIAA curve back in. Because engineers, when they make a record, they compress the sound waves into a very less dynamic, kind of smashed version, crushed down so that those bass frequencies and things can fit on the vinyl record without, taking up more space. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to fit 20 minutes of good music. So they start by taking the full spectrum of sound, they crush it down to this, and that's what's modulated on the record. And then the preamp, here's our preamp again. My terrible handwriting. The preamp then reassembles it back into that full modulation. So you get those full bass frequencies, everything sounds as it should. So it basically takes this and turns it back into that. So it adds in the RIAA curve. That's an EQ curve. So two things that we've got going on here. We've got the preamplification of the line voltage, and we have the adding back in of the RIAA curve so that your records sound good and not smashed. So that's something to consider. It should be noted too that most modern turntables actually have a built-in phono preamp, but vintage units don't. So you either need to add one or you're going to have the problems that we discussed earlier. And even if you do have a built-in phono preamp on your record player, oftentimes adding an external one is desirable because they can be higher quality than the built-in ones. And if it does have a built-in preamp, it's going to be selectable. So you can turn off the built-in preamp and instead use your own. So that brings us to this. This is the Ampapa A1 phono preamp, tube preamp. And that's the other thing too. This adds in vacuum tubes into the circuit. So essentially it introduces that warm sound quality of tubes or valves for my friends across the pond that is desirable for analog sound enthusiasts such as you and me. This also acts as a headphone amplifier, which is a good feature. Designed by Ampapa in Washington, and I'm excited to check it out. As often is the case these days, the packaging is on point. So we've got a good quality box here. Even color matched lining, what is that about? These packaging these days, just amazing. All right, so here it looks like we've got an accessory box, power amplifier, and the tubes. Does say power adapter, excuse me. It's like power amplifier. So wall wart power supply, and this is a 12 volt, 1.5 amp. And then our tubes are going to be here. So we want to be careful with those. They are made of glass, and obviously they're in a vacuum, so you don't want to mess with them. Here we have Machine A1, RCA cable, manual, warranty, certificate, a warranty and a certificate, and a cleaning cloth. Ooh, that looks cool. Look how that opens up. Isn't that cool? The presentation is on point. Okay. So let's get it out of here, and let's see. Let me set that aside for a minute. And let's see, we got a sticker. I always love it when stuff comes with a sticker. Wait, no, that's not a sticker. This is the certificate. You can be the checker and you can sign the date. Okay, so amplify, this is the warranty card. Amplifying all passion. The manual itself. Okay, cleaning cloth. All right. RCA cable. Ooh, this feels like a good one. Looks like gold plated tips. Yeah, and that's about it. Okay, let me get it set up and we'll take a closer look. Okay, in terms of the tube, this is the Jan 5654W. And let's go ahead and take these out. Some people are like, oh, you should use gloves. You shouldn't touch it. So I worked in television, and television studio light bulbs are notorious for picking up oils from your fingers. They also operate at extremely high temperatures. And so you would always have to wear gloves for those. However, these aren't ever really going to get that hot. That being said, it's probably not the best idea to, get your smeary, smudgy fingers all over it. But these are GE tubes, and if this is like some other preamps out there, they oftentimes add in LEDs under there, even though these will glow, kind of a low amber color on their own. Sometimes they'll add in an LED to kind of accentuate the effect. Something to keep in mind too is that most of these tube preamps are actually hybrid. So there's still going to be capacitors, not just the tubes for the amplification. So the tubes are almost like a filter but it still gives you that wonderful tube sound that everybody loves. And if you're not sure what I'm talking about, essentially analog warmth is accentuated by the use of vacuum tubes. So we are going to carefully insert said tube into the preamp. This always feels like you're going to break it. It's kind of difficult to insert it, so just be careful. And if you want to wear gloves, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you don't want to wear gloves, I think you'll be fine. Again, these get warm; they don't get hot. Okay, and they don't need to be exposed like this. It just looks cool. It just looks cool. By the way, fit and finish. This is heavy. It's got a good weight to it. It feels like this is, can't tell if that's metal or plastic. I was going to say plastic, but now I'm not so sure. These are aluminum, machined aluminum knobs, switches. So we got gold-plated terminals back here. We'll take a look at this in closer detail. But I want to start kind of, with a tour of the device. So it does have separate bass and treble controls and a volume control. Now you may be saying, wait a minute, I thought this was just a preamplifier. A lot of preamplifiers these days are putting a variable control on the volume for two reasons. One, because they often have this headphone jack. It acts as a headphone amplifier, and this is the volume control. If you're wondering what a headphone amplifier is, basically it allows you to plug in a device that doesn't have a volume control, like a VCR, a DVD player, a tape deck by itself, and add the ability to plug in your headphones and have a volume control on a device that doesn't have one built in. So a lot of times these Phono preamps will work as a headphone amplifier too. Because of that, you can adjust what that voltage, the output voltage is. Now going back to my little diagram here, if I zoom out, so that means that this voltage is adjustable a little bit. So you can raise it or lower it, which is kind of nice actually. So if you feel that you want to tune it down a little bit quieter, then you can do that. It gives you a little bit more control. Typically I put it at about 80% to approximate line level. So hopefully that's not confusing, but anyway, that's the headphone jack, or that's the volume control. There's also steps, like there's little clicks as it turns. It's a nice little grrr, grrr, clicking action as it goes. Over here we have some switches here. So it says LED, green and orange. So we can pick between the two. There's also a central position, perhaps off. You can select the input level, line or phono. The reason why you'd want to do that, harkening back to my discussion a minute ago, if you wanted to use this as a headphone amplifier on a line level piece of equipment like a VCR or a component CD player, that would be coming into this unit at line level. So you would switch it to line. However, if you've got a record player and you're using this as a Phono preamp, you would want that on phono level. And then up here we've got a power on and off switch. So yeah, that's pretty self-explanatory. I like the appearance of this. On the bottom we've got those super tacky, in a good way, good tack, rubberized dome sticker button things. Got a QC sticker right there. Looking around the unit some more. And let's zoom in here on the back panel. Okay, so when you use an external preamp, you need a ground between the turntable and the preamp. So that's provided for you there, as well as the left and right RCA. So that would come out of the record player into this device with these three connections. And if you wanted to connect a line level device, like I keep saying, a VCR, a tape deck, something that's already line level, you would use that. But that would only be if you're not using the phono input. You could use both. So you could plug your record player in here and your component CD player in there, and then use that switch up there to switch between the two. So that would be cool. And then this says RCA out, but that is also could be labeled line output. So it'll come into the preamp at phono level, that lower voltage, and it'll leave the preamp at the line level voltage. So from here, you connect it to your powered speakers, to your receiver, whatever device you want to connect it to. And then obviously the 12 volt power supply. It's actually a pretty simple device. At first glance, it may appear somewhat intimidating, but there's really not that much to it. It's kind of a set it and forget it kind of a device. So with that being said, let's set it, and I'm going to give you guys a direct feed sound test. I'm going to hook this up to one of my turntables, and we'll look at it powered up, and we will listen to it, listen to music through this device in all of its analog vacuum tube glory. Okay, so I've got it hooked up to my system, and I'll show you the turntable we'll be using here in a minute. But you may be saying to yourself, and it's on, you may be saying to yourself, wow, the glow is really dim. You can see a little bit of orange glow in there. That's because the added LED lighting isn't activated. So check this out. If I flip the switch to orange, then now those tubes light up a lot brighter, and this is cool. I wasn't expecting this. This outside edge is also lit up to match. But even cooler, now I love orange. Orange is my favorite color. But even cooler than that is, check this out, green mode. Is that not the sickest thing you've ever seen? So look at that preamp. Isn't that beautiful? So we got the green light going around. We've got the green lit vacuum tubes and all that good stuff. Now for the sound test, I wanted to neutralize the sound shaping on here. So we're going to keep the bass and the treble at the 0 position. So we're neither detracting from nor adding to at the preamp level the bass. So we're just gonna be hearing a neutral sound throughput, and obviously the volume will be adjusted for a good recording level. And again, this is the record player. Oops, right here. Record player is connected, and let's take a look at the record player I'll be using. Well, that'll be my beautiful Technics SLDL1 direct drive linear tracker. Of course, why not? It's a beautiful turntable. So let me go ahead and load up a record, and if you want to put your headphones on now, that would be a good time to do it, and we will listen to this device together. We are about ready to go for the sound test. Got the record queued up, and the needle is lifted off of the playing surface until I hit the queuing switch. We're going to be listening to a direct feed, although I wanted to mention, it's kind of cool, I found out that you can listen to the line output, like on your speakers or whatever, at the same time that you are using the headphone jack. And we're going to be listening through the headphone jack because it gives me the variable output level for my Zoom recorder. Separate story, my Zoom recorder, even though it's got a line input, really takes a variable input. So that being said, we're going to use the headphone jack output, listening to this vacuum tube preamp and a little Enoch light because it's YouTube friendly. So without further ado, here we go. All right, my friends, and that's going to do it. 2 thumbs up. I thought it sounded fantastic. What did you think? Let me know down in the comments below. But anyway, that's going to do it for today. So happy record hunting. We'll see you next time.